Ridiculous.
Ridiculous, but I bet it was for a significant amount of money.
Still.
Yeah, but fun. I'd watch it. Look, Jake Paul wants to test himself against actual, not just world champion, but one of the greatest of all time.
Fought, and it wasn't fixed, Jake Paul would not survive 45 seconds.
I don't know about that. I think it would take a few rounds.
Really?
But yeah, first of all, Jake is a lot bigger. Jake's a lot bigger.
But what way would they...
About the number, if it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. It makes no sense for me. It's not my... what I'm looking at right now.
Joe Rogan couldn't believe what he was hearing. Jake Paul calling out Francis Ngannou as his next opponent after the Gervonta Davis fight got canceled? On his podcast, Rogan called it insane and downright reckless. He said Jake might not realize just how dangerous Ngannou really is, one of the hardest punchers in combat sports history. Still, Rogan admitted if it ever happens, it would be one of the biggest spectacles boxing's ever seen.
Nikista calls Francis. This is Francis telling the story. Nikista calls Francis. This says, "Hey, we need your help. We need an opponent for Jake. Tank is out." And Francis says, "All right." And Francis says, "Well, how can I help you?" Nikista says, "Well, we're looking at an opponent for Jake. Tank Davis is out." And Francis says, "All right, but specifically, how can I help you?" Nikista takes a third swing at the bat. He says, "Well, we need an opponent. We need a boxer. We need a partner. We need somebody to fight Jake. Tank is out." And Francis asks him again, "Okay, what?"
After Gervonta Davis backed out due to serious legal trouble, Jake Paul's team went into panic mode, searching for a replacement. That's when Francis Ngannou's name started floating around, the former UFC heavyweight champ known for his insane knockout power, size, and global reputation as one of the scariest strikers alive.
I think the fight is going to be completely canceled and rescheduled, and now we have potential opponent names and some people being ruled out coming into today. This is not a joke. It was said by Mike Coppinger and others that the #1 candidate to replace Tank Davis in a Jake Paul fight, probably on a different date, was going to be Francis Ngannou. What the But we have an update on that and other potential names that Jake could fight. Again, I think on a separate date, and why I think the Jake and Tank fight is completely off. No more, maybe, no more. We don't think it'll happen.
Michael Bisping called out the massive size gap in this rumored matchup. He reminded fans that Jake's original opponent, Gervonta Davis, is a lightweight, tiny compared to Ngannou. Bisping said switching from Davis to Ngannou is like going from one extreme to the other. It's not just a mismatch in skill or record, it's a complete leap in power, size, and danger.
Mike Tyson, who's 58, Anderson Silva, who was way past his prime, people like Nate Diaz, who were way smaller. Gervonta Davis really did take the piss. I mean, that was just the craziest shout ever. To go from fighting Gervonta Davis, way smaller, to now boxing Francis Ngannou. I mean, listen, if he does it, fair play. But I just call #1 bullshit on this brother, because I don't see this happening. No.
This is #1 bullshit.
I just don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Nate Diaz, yeah, 100%. I mean, he beat him once already. I'm sure Nate Diaz would love to get another big payday, because obviously boxing on Netflix and going up against Jake Paul, given his success, given the name that he has, and given the magnitude of his events, Nate Diaz will get paid an absolute fortune once again. We know that it wasn't too long ago, Jake Paul was talking about boxing Anthony Joshua. And that never came to fruition. There's absolutely no way he would box Anthony Joshua. If he did, if he was to do something like that, whether it be Anthony Joshua or Francis Ngannou, I'd give him his props. I'd give him his credit. And you never know. Maybe he would do it just for the clout. Because in many ways it would be, sorry about the airport notifications, it would be an admirable thing to do. And it will be Jake Paul taking on somebody bigger.
According to Ngannou, Jake Paul's offer came completely out of the blue. He said it caught him off guard and didn't align with his current goals. While the money was tempting, Ngannou turned it down, saying the offer just didn't make professional sense. He questioned how Paul's team thought jumping from Davis to him was logical, making it clear this wasn't about money, but about credibility.
Fight Jake to replace Gervonta. I'm like, who's Jake? I was so confused, I wasn't expecting that at all. And he said, yeah, Jake Paul, he's fighting. And I'm like, no, bro, come on. Don't disrespect me like that. And then they even say even come out after and say, and what if the number are good? He sent out some number. I'm like, it's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. He make no sense for me. It's not my what.
Daniel Cormier didn't hold back his warning for Jake Paul. He said facing Francis Ngannou could end very badly. Cormier pointed out that Ngannou's power and size make this a dangerous mismatch. Jake simply isn't built to handle a heavyweight striker of that level. His message was clear. This isn't just about hype or pay-per-view numbers. The risk outweighs the reward.
From fighting Gervonta Davis to calling out Francis Ngannou, Jake Paul don't want those problems. I can't say it any different. Jake Paul does not want any Francis Ngannou problems. He don't. He does not want those issues. While I think it's crazy and I credit him for doing that, and I'm surprised he did that, this could be a ploy. Him poking out his chest, saying, I want Francis. He don't want those Francis Ngannou problems. I don't care what Anthony Joshua did to Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul gets in there with Francis. Francis will knock his head off this planet. You don't want those Francis problems. I watched Francis put down Tyson Fury. Sure, Anthony Joshua beat him. But even if Jake got power, I don't think he got power to be dealing with Francis. Because all it takes is for one.
Cormier added that the whole thing feels more like a publicity stunt than a real fight. He said Jake has no idea what it's like to face a heavyweight who can punch through gloves. In MMA, Ngannou's power is legendary, and in boxing, it's even more concentrated. If Jake steps into that ring without understanding the difference between MMA striking and boxing defense, Cormier warned, it could be a very short night.
Right? Boxing is much different than mixed martial arts. The target audience might be the same, but the demographics different. The places where people are brought up are different. There's bigger entourages in boxing. It's just a different world in boxing. We've known that from the very beginning. We know that Gervonta Davis was not going to just play to Jake Paul's rules. I still don't know exactly why this thing is falling apart, but it is falling apart bad. It is bursting at the seams. We are almost exactly where we should have never started. This should have never gotten started, but it did. But we are almost now exactly where we need to be in the fight, and that's...
Analysts across the board are calling this a risky move for Jake Paul. With Gervonta Davis pulling out last minute, Paul's team apparently saw Ngannou as a quick fix, but experts say that's a mistake. Ngannou himself said it makes no sense for his career to take the fight on such short notice. Many are even comparing it to Tyson Fury versus Ngannou, another crossover spectacle. Fury barely survived that one, and he's a real heavyweight champion. If Fury struggled, what chance would Jake have?
Interesting about this is, okay, if they push it back to December, then that's slightly different. But this is the kind of one situation where you're kind of 10 days out, 2 weeks out from a fight, whenever they first got wind of this problem. This is the kind of situation where it would be possible that Jake Paul and Nikita Badarian and MVP, who are very, very shrewd people, this is the one occasion where they might end up making a mistake and taking someone at short notice who they shouldn't take. because there'd be a whole raft of people putting their hand up for it, wouldn't they? Thinking, I'll take him at short notice. I'll make out that I've been sitting on a beach, eating and drinking for the last 6 months. I'll anything just to get in there with him. And then on the night, I'm gonna knock his head off. There'll be loads of people putting their hand up for this. And you'd have to be incredibly careful about who you took at short notice, because for it to have any kind of meaning, you would need to take a decent opponent at short notice, because obviously they're up against it because it's short notice. You couldn't take some barely warm body at short notice, because that would be even worse than giving them full notice. So this is the one area, the one situation in which it would be easy for them to make a mistake, but they don't make mistakes with things like this. They just don't. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they haven't been tempted into, somebody. Ngannou, that'd be a mistake. It'd be such a mistake. I know he got flattened by Joshua, but so what? Joshua is a 2-time unified champion of the world, and Ngannou's 270 pounds of absolute granite. That would have been a terrible, terrible mistake if they'd given him the fight.
And he dropped, like, people. I know, my opinion, Tyson Fury won that fight with Ngannou, but he still put Tyson